Right now, on to the point. Preparing for blizzard conditions, power companies bracing for outages, and the warning for those on the road.
Motorists need to expect the potential for anything.
Plus, following the money, hundreds of millions invested to fight retail theft, how agencies are spending it in our area. And later, breaking barriers, the two Sacramento sisters that helped change the face of musical theater as we know it. Northern California is bracing for a major winter storm with blizzard conditions. Thank you for joining us on To The Point. I'm Becca Habiger. Alex has the night off. We have team coverage tonight, getting you prepared with everything you need to know. Let's get over first to Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods. Monica, what do we need to know right now?
The big impact day is going to be on Friday. However, we are tracking this storm that will start up for tomorrow. Tonight, it is dry. Good time to prepare for this major winter storm. As you can see, here's the impact lineup. And Thursday, we certainly are going to be seeing heavy snow develop, but it's Friday and Saturday where not only are we going to still be seeing very heavy snow, but gusty winds, plus the accumulated effect. Snow level dropping to about 1,500 feet. Again, tonight, still okay to get out there, do some cleanup, especially for the yards, temperatures in the 50s. But really what we're going to be tracking is not only our blizzard warning in the Sierra, wind advisory for parts of the valley.
Monica, thank you. And with the storm expecting to bring several feet of snow to the Sierra, travel is expected to be dangerous. ABC 10's Alicia Machado joins us from Soda Springs tonight on how Caltrans is preparing for the impacts to the roads.
Well, the National Weather Service says mountain travel will be nearly impossible Thursday through the weekend. And Caltrans has been preparing for this kind of weather since the start of the week, making sure that they're fully staffed and have equipment ready to go before snowfall.
There are blue skies above Soda Springs Wednesday, but come Thursday, a storm is bringing blizzard conditions to the Sierra.
Motorists need to expect the potential for anything. It's not very often that even the National Weather Service issues a blizzard warning for the Sierra.
A spokesperson for Caltrans District 3 says travel could be near impossible at times.
The dangers are there, not only weather-wise for heavy snowfall, gusty winds, possible whiteout conditions, but now when you put that on a very busy stretch of highway, that's a critical artery for the state, that adds even more additional challenges.
Caltrans says drivers should be prepared for possible road closures, traffic holds, extended delays, and slow travel.
If you don't have to drive, don't do it. Delay your travel. Wait till the storm passes.
Caltrans says Donner Pass is expected to be one of the most impacted areas in our region, as it's the highest spot along I-80 and it can be the windiest. Plow trucks will be out to keep the highways clear. If they need additional resources, Caltrans will bring in crews from valley locations and the Bay Area. In Soda Springs, just off of I-80, gas stations were busy Wednesday afternoon as people prepared for the storm.
I figured better get some fuel for the snow blowers and the generator.
Mary Turow says she'll be hunkering down at home, waiting for the storm to pass.
Caltrans says to avoid travel if you can, but if you absolutely must get out on the roads, make sure to check out Caltrans Quick Map for the latest on chain controls and road closures.
Let's head to Devin Truby now in Truckee, where tonight people are stocking up ahead of the storm.
This lot has been busy all day because it's kind of a one-stop shop. You got a grocery store and a hardware store. We've seen people coming in and out all day with carts full of last-minute supplies. Truckee residents enjoying the last days of sunshine before the snowstorm rolls in.
Because we will have power outages, and many of the Sierra counties are going to be hit particularly hard. El Dorado, Placer, Nevada, Sierra counties are going to be hit especially hard with the storm and low elevation snow on Saturday.
Which is why Colfax resident James Hatch already has his plan in place.
A little Generac. When the power goes off, it kicks on the Generac and still have power. Be nice if everybody did.
PG&E says this storm, they're predicting most outages will be caused by trees breaking under the weight of the snow.
We're also out pruning trees because we expect there could be the need to replace a large number of poles and down power lines. So we'll need to have those materials staged and ready to go.
Stores from Colfax to Truckee bustling with people picking up last-minute items, preparing to possibly be snowed in.
Getting firewood upstairs and just got the propane filled. Just went to Costco, grabbed a couple small things from here, so
Benjamin Sullivan is also preparing entertainment for the next few days.
Pull out a puzzle, cook something you've never cooked before, read a book.
PG&E says they plan to pull crew members from areas not impacted by the storm so they can have a quicker response. They've also already staged their snow-equipped vehicles in other areas so they can get to those places that can be hard to reach during the storm.
You can also watch Live Radar and get notifications about what's happening in your area with the free ABC 10 app. Be sure to turn on notifications. Detectives across multiple agencies have now wrapped up a months-long investigation into what they say was Hells Angels motorcycle gang activity. This was the scene today at the Stockton Hells Angels clubhouse on East Minor Street. Investigators arrested several people connected to violence last year between rival gang members. Law enforcement agents also seized 50 guns, drugs, and even bomb-making explosive material. It's been nearly 5 months since Governor Gavin Newsom announced a $267 million investment in the state's efforts to fight retail theft. Dozens of law enforcement agencies and district attorneys' offices received a portion of the money. And tonight, our Jeannie Nguyen shares how that money is being spent.
Becca, agencies like the Sacramento County DA and Sheriff's Office got millions of dollars from that grant to combat retail theft. And for many of them, it meant hiring more people to solely focus on these types of crimes. And for the businesses, they say this grant came in just the right time.
It is an epidemic that's affecting every community, particularly those with very robust commerce and business centers.
It's a problem plaguing California, retail theft. Back in October, Governor Gavin Newsom announced the Organized Retail Prevention Grant, dedicating $267 million to law enforcement agencies and district attorneys statewide. With the growing problems at places like Roseville Galleria, Placer County DA Morgan Geyer's office got over $2 million to build a specialized team.
A full-time dedicated organized retail theft prosecutor, a district attorney investigator, a sworn law enforcement officer to assist in those investigations, and a crime analyst that will help work with our local law enforcement agencies.
Over in Sacramento County, the Sheriff's Office got nearly $9.5 million. So far, it's been used to conduct major operations like Bad Elf during the 2023 holiday season, leading to hundreds of arrests.
We can attribute 300 plus people actually cited and or arrested as a direct result of this retail theft grant.
And in Modesto, police got just a little more than $6 million over 3 years.
That goes for operations to combat vehicle theft. It also went to hiring a new employee who focuses, our civilian investigator. That's all she does is focus on organized retail theft.
As a voice for retailers across the state, Rachel Michelin says seeing the money being used like this is what she's been advocating for.
Our theory has always been the more that these criminals understand there will be a consequence for the behavior, our hope is that it will deter the behavior from ever happening in the first place.
Last month, the Sacramento County DA's office announced a brand new organized retail theft protection unit dedicated to investigate and prosecute retail theft crimes. Also within that 2-month time frame, the DA's office says it filed 35 cases, but it's still unclear as to how many of those have been convicted in that time, Becca.
Jeannie, thank you. And we do want to mention that state senators gathered this week to announce a package of 14 bills that aim to address the rise in retail crime, as well as the state's fentanyl crisis. You can read more about them right now on our website, abc10.com. Still ahead on To The Point, how 2 Sacramento sisters changed the face of musical theater in more ways than one.
They were the ones responsible for the first American musical. Not the first African-American musical, the first American musical.
Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods joined us. Monica, you've got your running shoes on because you have an analogy, right?
I said I'm sprinting to the marathon because this is going to really be a long duration system for this year in particular. And so we want to get right to it. Here's what we're expecting. Blizzard warning in effect. That starts tomorrow, takes us all the way through Sunday morning. That's why we're saying this is going to be a long duration situation for this Sierra. Wind advisory goes into place for tomorrow for the central and northern part of the Sacramento Valley, but we'll kind of get 2 pulses pulses of those strong winds coming through, one of which will happen during the midday hour for tomorrow. That being true as well for the Sierra. The Sierra kind of dealing with the winds all through this event. And then during Friday evening, we'll get another pulse of those strong winds coming in as another wave of pretty strong precipitation comes through. By the end of this whole event, we'll get about a ½ inch to 1.5 inches of rain for the valley. But in terms of our snow forecast, with that snow line dropping at times down to about 2,000 feet, we'll pick up anywhere from 2 to 100 inches of snow, the heaviest snow coming at the summits. So we'll see some very difficult travel conditions, if not at all right out shutdowns of those roads. In terms of the rainfall coming in, again, we're expecting that to come in during the day on Thursday, and it takes us all the way through our Saturday forecast with the snow pretty much heavy throughout the entire duration of this event. Highs will be in the 30s for the Sierra tomorrow, 40s and 50s down low, with 50s across the coast. A much cooler outlook for us as we head into what will be a very wet and snowy outlook here through at least the beginning of the weekend. Another one behind it next week.
Monica, thank you. And coming up next, as we celebrate Black History Month, the two sisters from Sacramento who broke barriers and helped change musical theater. This Black History Month, we're highlighting the contribution of African Americans. Two trailblazing sisters who helped pioneer modern musical theater were from Sacramento. The duo helped change the course of popular entertainment, from one that ridiculed African Americans to one that portrayed them with dignity. We want to warn you, this story includes racist, historical images and accounts that may be difficult to watch. We did seek the input of Black community members, historians, and colleagues to ensure we produced this story in a respectful and responsible manner and only for educational purposes.
I just wanted to look this up.
Sushil Bibbs plays many roles, including classical singer, filmmaker.
They put opera in their musicals.
And researcher, as she showed us in her Sacramento home.
20 years of research on Mary Ellen Pleasant.
Through her research on Mary Ellen Pleasant, known as the mother of civil rights in California, Bibbs learned about the contributions of a largely unsung pair of sisters who changed the face of musical theater in more ways than one.
We owe them the concept of humanness of African Americans and trying to portray that.
Anna and Emma Hires grew up in Sacramento in the 1860s, performing opera with their parents from a young age.
The father and mother were amateur opera singers.
Bibbs researched and made several award-winning documentaries on the Hires sisters, blending history with recreations of their performances. She says the two eventually embarked on an opera career as a duo, becoming the very first African-American women to entertain white audiences while touring across the U.S., garnering acclaim in the post-Civil War Reconstruction era.
They were so popular that when they got to New York, they had a distinction of becoming the first African-American women to be on a mixed stage in a mainstream white Caucasian audience.
That was no small accomplishment, especially against the backdrop of another type of performance popular at the time called a minstrel show.
Gentlemen, be seated!
Bibbs uses these racist images in her documentaries and walked us through some of them during our interview. It's important to show them, she told us, because if you don't see the imagery, you don't understand what the Hires sisters were up against and fighting for. It's hard to watch, isn't it?
It's very hard to watch. Whenever I see it, as many times as I've seen it, I just shake my head.
Minstrel shows got their start in the 1830s and 40s. White actors donned blackface, painting their face with burnt cork and portraying offensive caricatures of African Americans.
It's making fun of the way people talked also.
As she and retired public historian Dr. Rick Moss explain, these insulting performances were vile attempts at giving white audiences justification for slavery before and during the Civil War, portraying the false narrative that Black people were ignorant and inferior. And the depictions only got worse.
After the Civil War, it became angry. Then it became something biting. and harsh.
In the decades following the war, minstrel shows only grew in popularity among white audiences as more African Americans, especially formerly enslaved people, gained access to education, wealth, land, and political power. Bibbs points out these biting depictions had long-lasting harm, influencing culture, people, and eventually racist policies such as the separate but equal doctrine and Jim Crow laws that enforced racial segregation well into the 20th century, effects which still impact Black Americans to this day.
Even though the proponents of slavery lost, their belief in the inferiority of Black people did not disappear.
Dr. Rick Moss is the former chief curator and director of the African American Museum and Library at Oakland and provides important historical perspective. He says minstrel shows were so popular and lucrative after the Civil War, some African Americans formed their own minstrel troupes and performed in blackface using burnt cork just like white minstrel performers.
On the part of those performers, they had to make a living. They had to live and had to eat. Would it be easier digging the ditch, towing the bale, right? Or going on stage and performing and being something that you know you're not? So it was survival, I believe.
We're talking about the offensive imagery and portrayals in minstrel shows to put into context what the Hyers sisters did next, instead of pursuing an international opera career.
The Hyers in 1876 decided they weren't going to Europe. They were going to abandon a dream for the greater good, and they were taught that it had to do with their people being free and free of the bondage of the imagery that the blackface minstrels put upon them.
Seeing the growing hostilities against African Americans, the Hyers sisters started their own touring theater company called the Hyers Comic Opera Company.
They were the ones responsible for the first American musical. Not the first African American musical, the first American musical.
They produced several musicals and toured for some 20 years, all without the use of blackface.
They focused these stories on the African American experience from slavery to freedom, to see African Americans as human beings. They had white and black in a cast. They had dancers, and nobody had blackface. And so you're looking at something really revolutionary.
She says the work of the Hyers sisters and other pioneering Black artists helped lead to an end of minstrel shows.
Something else came along to replace it, and Black people had a large hand in making sure there was something much better. Those little battles being fought, whether to cork or uncork or not cork, play the banjo or not. It's a pretty rich legacy.
A rich legacy that lives on in this storyteller.
It was really something to make that change and to go against what people expected of me.
Bibbs going from a career in classical music to telling the stories of Black women trailblazers through documentary filmmaking.
My name is Mary E. Pleasant.
That's what the Hyers did. They connected with that in me, that ability to connect your dreams with your values.
We had a lot of internal discussions and collaborated with African American community members and colleagues about how to use the racist images in a responsible way and only to educate and tell this important story. Everyone we spoke to emphasized the importance of showing the images to acknowledge America's dark past and fully understand the African American experience. And while doing so, celebrating the resilience of the community as clearly demonstrated by the efforts of the Hyers sisters. And if you're interested in watching one of Sushil Bibbs' documentaries on the Hyers sisters, it's available for rent or purchase on Vimeo. We put a link on our website, abc10.com/links. In other news tonight, the Supreme Court has agreed to decide whether former President Trump can be prosecuted on charges he interfered with the 2020 election. The High Court will hear arguments in April, with a decision likely no later than the end of June. The court said today it will consider whether, and if so, to what extent, a former president can enjoy presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his time in office.
It's time for the next generation of leadership.
After nearly 2 decades, Senator Mitch McConnell is stepping down as Senate Republican leader in November. During his tenure, he reshaped the federal judiciary by steering 3 conservative justices onto the Supreme Court. McConnell says he'll finish his term as senator, which will end in January of 2027. Next on To the Point, where voter turnout stands ahead of the primary election and how the upcoming storm could impact that. California's primary election is on Tuesday, and already experts are predicting lower than average voter turnout. That means your vote is statistically very important and impactful. There are some 22 million registered voters in our state. Only about 10% have voted so far. The current record for low voter turnout in California presidential primary election is in 2012, where just 31% of Californians voted. Paul Mitchell of Political Data, Inc., a bipartisan voter data firm, tells ABC 10 we could be on track to break that low voter turnout record.
In a low turnout election, your vote matters even more because if a quarter of the electorate is voting, then your vote essentially counts almost like 4 votes because, you know, the impact of it in an election, especially a close election, is magnified.
We'll hear more analysis from him on Friday and which races could be decided by a razor-thin margin. And we want you to feel prepared to vote and make your voice heard. So join us tomorrow at 6:30 for a special election edition of To the Point for more information on how to make your vote count and the key local races to watch. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, it's Alex. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. The To The Point team and I love hearing from you, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. And don't forget, you can always email me and the team at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send us a text message at 916-321-3310.